Hello, and welcome back to the Anagame series of videos. In this video, we will explore the purpose of TrecCode and the structure it offers so far. I say this as TrecCode is one of the least developed components of Anagame that has some semblance of structure. The long-term goal is to create a flexible language-independent compiler. Since that is a very complex and daunting goal, there are multiple serial phases involved that should be achieved before the final goal is achieved. I don't expect everyone watching this to be eager to develop a compiler or interpreter, but the video is provided to offer insight on this aspect of Anagame in case you are curious. For the time being, we should focus on creating basic interpreters for basic, loosely typed languages. While I started working on a JavaScript interpreter, if anyone wishes to pick up where I left off, they are welcome to do so. As of right now, TrecCode is actually divided into two libraries, TrecCode and TcDataStruct. TcDataStruct is the lower level library above TrecLib and below video graphics. It is also being developed in the environment branch. The main class in this library is an abstract class called TInterpreter. Its job is to provide an interface to hold and run scripts as well as hold a map of variables. The idea is that there is a top-level interpreter that runs through the entire file. Every time it comes across a block of code, it creates a new interpreter to focus on that particular block. The top-level interpreter will be given a file through this method. Its job is to parse the file and perform tasks such as filtering out comments. This method is abstract, as different languages have different specifications on how to recognize and ignore comments. There are 5 major types of variables currently supported: primitive, collection, native object, string, and interpreter. Primitive is pretty self-explanatory. It holds information about primitive type and the size it is expected to take up. Collection is meant to hold a collection of values, whether it is an array, dictionary, tuple, or a JavaScript style class. Native object refers to objects held by Anagame itself. They were compiled at the C++ level and must be a subclass of TObject. A special type of Trec pointer was added to support this functionality. String is also pretty self-explanatory. This variable holds a T-string. Interpreter, i.e. the T-interpreter, is meant to represent a function or method. To support it, it has 2 run methods, a blank one and one with a params parameter. The first one is meant to be called when the script first starts. The second one is meant to hold parameters and should be called when a parent interpreter reaches a function call and finds the appropriate interpreter for that function. Another type of interpreter worth mentioning is the T-native interpreter. It takes in a reference to a special native function. These native functions are written in C++ and are intended to call native code using the parameters provided by a parent interpreter. This is to support script-to-native software bindings. As of right now, I'll be focusing on an AnaScript interpreter. AnaScript is a language I'm developing to run on Anagame. Anyone attempting to write a JavaScript interpreter might want to extend the T primitive variable to support formatting instructions, since such information is held within the variable itself. Another aspect of TrecCode is the use of environments, with an abstract class called TEnvironment. TEnvironment is located in the tap library, though I'm wondering if I should move it to the TrecLib library so that a T-shell could take advantage of it. In the TrecCode library, I have started classes for Gradle environments, Maven environments, Anagame environments. However, I still need to work on the Anagame specific class. Anyone who is familiar with Gradle or Maven, or even Visual Studio projects, are free to attempt to implement relevant environments. The core role of an environment should at least manage a project and hold a reference to the root directory of that project. It could also hold interpreters and objects that the scripts might use. Right now, I would consider TrecCode development to be in the early stages of Phase 1. Phase 1 is to support the creation of raw source code interpreters. These interpreters should focus on a single language, and the language is recommended to utilize loose typing, though the exploration of strict typing is encouraged. Phase 2 is to create a couple Anagame-based virtual machines, as well as the creation of interpreters that compile code to code that can be processed by one such virtual machine. At this point, primitive type should be strongly typed, or the type has a default. I currently envision objects still being loosely typed. Phase 3 is when the instructions used for virtual machines are mapped to those of existing architectures, such as x86 or ARM, or even the JVM if legal issues don't get in the way. It's at this point that we should work on compilers that focus on languages that target those end architectures. Phase 4 is when we look at patterns in the compilers in the hopes of creating one flexible compiler. Thank you for watching. In the next video, we will go over current issues, and in the final one, I will showcase making a pull request from a forked repository I made into the original one.